Geçiyorum. Burası geçiyor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أرسلناك إلا مبشرا ونذيرا صدق الله العظيم اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد كلما ذكره الذاكرون وصل على سيدنا مولانا محمد كلما غفر عن ذكره الغافلون اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك. We want the 9 years old and older to be in the main hall. Boys in the back, 9 years and older. It won't be too long, inshallah, and it will definitely be not boring. So we're talking about the seerah, which means the life or the biography of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're talking about the uncle of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By the way, Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose actual name was not Abdul Muttalib. Anybody knows the actual name of Abdul Muttalib? Very good. Yes, Shayba. Shayba was the name, but probably only a small percentage of Muslims know the actual name of the grandfather of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's a story behind that as well, why he was called Abdul Muttalib among the people of Makkah and not being called by his real name, which is Shayba. Anyways, Abdul Muttalib had 10 sons. And those 10 sons were from different wives of Abdul Muttalib. So they were not all from the same mother. They were from different mothers. So these were half brothers, not full brothers. Their father was the same, but their mothers were different. So Abdullah, who is the father of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is not the youngest, but he is among the youngest children of Abdul Muttalib. The youngest son of Abdul Muttalib was Hamza, who was only 2 years older than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. See, he was almost the same age as our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it was the 8th year of the life of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Abdul Muttalib also passed away. When he was 6 years old, his beloved mother Amina passed away, and his grandfather Abdul Muttalib took full custody and full responsibility of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that age. So for 2 years, Abdul Muttalib was always with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would never let him go away from his sight. He loved him more than his own children, and he cared for him more than his own children as well. And he used to say that this grandson of mine will have a unique status in the community. He's a very, very special child. Sometimes during the day, Abdul Muttalib would come into Masjid al-Haram, which at that time, of course, had no distinct border or boundary. People's homes were right around the Grand Masjid. So Abdul Muttalib sometimes during the day would come in Masjid al-Haram, and he would put a special rug right next to the Kaaba, and he would allow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to sit on that rug. No one else would ever dare to even step on that special rug belonging to Abdul Muttalib, because they knew this is exclusively for Abdul Muttalib. And Abdul Muttalib was one of the chiefs of Makkah. Everyone respected him. Everyone looked up to him. So once one of the sons of Abdul Muttalib, one of the uncles of the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw the Prophet ﷺ sitting on that rug, he tried to move the Prophet ﷺ. He was only about 7 years old at that time. So Abdul Muttalib stopped his son. He said, "Don't touch him. He deserves to be here. None of you deserve to be on this place, but this son of mine has every right and he deserves to be here." So when Abdul Muttalib, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was 8 years old, Abdul Muttalib passed away. And it is mentioned in some narrations, Ayman radiyallahu anha, she mentions that when the janazah of Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was being carried, he was only 8 years old, he was walking behind and he was seen crying. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was really sad that now, first, of course, he lost his father even before he was born. Then he lost his mother when he was only 6 years old. And now he lost his grandfather as well when he's only 8 years old. So he was very sad and he was crying while he was walking behind the janazah of his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. His janazah was eventually carried to Hujun, where the cemetery is still established today. It is still the same cemetery. In that same cemetery, Abdul Muttalib was buried. And that is also the same cemetery where the beloved wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khadija radiyallahu anha, Mu'mineen, she's also buried. So before he passed away, Abdul Muttalib, he gave full responsibility of raising and caring for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Abu Talib. Now, why Abdul Muttalib chose Abu Talib to become the caretaker and guardian of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? There's a reason. He could have chosen Zubayr. He could have chosen Abbas. He could have chosen some other uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be responsible for the Prophet ﷺ, caring for him, raising him, providing for him, giving him home, education, everything. Hamza was out of question, radiyallahu anhu, because he was too young. He was only 2 years older than the Prophet ﷺ. So Hamza radiyallahu anhu was not much older than the Prophet ﷺ. At that time, he was only 10 years old. So Abdul Muttalib decided to give that honor and responsibility to Abu Talib, because Abu Talib was the only uncle of the Prophet ﷺ who was the full brother of Abdullah. All other uncles are from different wives of Abdul Muttalib. Abu Talib is the only one who is from the same mother as Abdullah was. By the way, Hamza radiyallahu anhu's mother is also related to the mother of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Her name was Hala, and she is the first cousin of Amina, the beloved mother of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she got married 2 years before the beloved father, the beloved father of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam got married. So when Abu Talib was being given the responsibility, Abdul Muttalib advised him, and he told him that I don't want anyone to cause any harm to this son of mine. I'm trusting you, I'm giving you full responsibility, and I am trusting you for this burden that I'm putting on your shoulders. So Abu Talib seriously took that responsibility, and he did not leave anything behind in caring for the Prophet ﷺ. He actually cared for the Prophet ﷺ more than he cared for his own children, and more than he cared for his own family. And just like Abdul Muttalib would always keep the Prophet ﷺ with him, Abu Talib also did his best to keep the Prophet ﷺ in front of his eyes all the time. So our beloved Prophet ﷺ, when he was a child and he was living in the home of Halima as-Sa'diyah, and he had the foster siblings, they used to herd the goats and sheep. So the Prophet ﷺ, he did herd the goats and sheep at that time as well with his siblings. They used to go out in the open land with the goats and sheep, and they used to let the goats and sheep graze. This was in the childhood of the Prophet ﷺ. Then when the Prophet ﷺ became a little older, probably around 13, 14, when he was a young man, he used to herd the goats at that time as well. He was a shepherd at that time. And he mentioned himself. He said that I used to shepherd the sheep of the people of Makkah for some qirat, for little bit compensation on the mountains of Makkah. And the Prophet ﷺ became aware of all the plants in that region as well. Once the Prophet ﷺ, after, of course, he became Prophet of Allah, and he was traveling with the companions, and they stopped at a place called Dhahran, which is there between Makkah and Medina. Even today, you can see on the map, and you can stop there as well. There's a rest area actually in that place. So the Prophet ﷺ stopped, and some companions went around the bushes, and they were looking for those wild fruits. Like you see, if you go to the park, if you go to State Forest, you will see some wild berries or something like that. So they were looking for some wild berries, some wild fruits, just to snack on. So the Prophet ﷺ told them, look for this particular kind, because those are juicier and those are better. And those are better for your health as well. So some companion asked, "O Prophet of Allah, how do you know? How do you know? This is something that only a Bedouin would know, who lives with the goats and sheep and who's always spending his entire life in desert." The Prophet ﷺ said, well, I used to shepherd the sheep belonging to the people of Makkah in this region, in this area. So I'm very well familiar with these wild plants. I know which one is good and which one is not good. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا وَقَدْ رَعَى الْغَنَمَ. There is no prophet in the history of humanity who did not have the job of shepherding goats, who was not a shepherd. Every prophet was a shepherd at one point in his life. Look at the story of Musa alayhi salam. Look at the story of Shu'aib alayhi salam. Look at the story of Zakaria alayhi salam. Look at the story of any prophet. At some point in their life, they were a shepherd, even if it is for a very short time. And there's a reason why Allah puts a prophet in this process of shepherding sheep and goats, because it's part of their training of becoming prophet of Allah and how to deal with all different kinds of people. The flock of the people is similar in behavior to the flock of sheep and goats. Just like in sheep and goats, no matter how you speak to them, kindly, softly, harshly, they're going to do what they want to do. They're not going to listen to you. Likewise, among the human beings, there are also people who will not listen to you no matter what you do for them and how caring and kind and polite you are to them. So you have to adjust yourself. You have to keep adjusting your ways in order to keep people on the straight path. Otherwise, people go astray, and what happens? They lose. They get harmed. And the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really get hurt when they know that this follower of theirs became astray. And of course, when you go astray, you go to the wrong path and you go to hellfire. So the Prophet ﷺ used to do that at that age. Then the Prophet ﷺ actively became involved in business, in tijara, and he used to work for different people. Sometimes he used to work for Abdul Muttalib. This also shows us another aspect of the seerah of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, the independence, especially in men. Because men are by nature and by default responsible to provide for the family. So, Rasulullah ﷺ, first of all, he was part of the family of Abu Talib. He was being cared for by Abu Talib. He was being looked after by Abu Talib, being provided by Abu Talib. And Abu Talib had his own family as well. So the Prophet ﷺ did not want to remain in that status of a kind of a burden. Abu Talib never expressed that he thought Rasulullah ﷺ was a burden to him. Never. Abu Talib gave unconditional love to the Prophet ﷺ and unconditional support to the Prophet ﷺ. But the Prophet ﷺ understood his own responsibilities, and the Prophet ﷺ understood his own role. So he wanted to become independent as soon as possible. So at a very early age, when he was shepherding the goats, he was probably 12, 13 years old. And he was getting paid for that, which was enough for his own expenses. Whatever expenses he had at that time, that much compensation was enough for him. He still had trust in Allah, but you have to do your work. You have to do your part to earn your livelihood. Then the Prophet ﷺ got involved in business, and he became very successful. And from there, he was known among the people of Makkah as As-Sadiq and Al-Amin, because the Prophet ﷺ never lied. He never lied to sell his merchandise, and he never lied to buy merchandise. And he was Al-Amin, trustworthy. Even if you gave the Prophet ﷺ 100,000, he was taking care of that 100,000 as he would take care of 50,000, or as he would take care of 1,000. He was completely trustworthy. No one was more trustworthy than the Prophet ﷺ. And because of that quality of the Prophet ﷺ, people started calling him Al-Amin, Al-Amin. And in business, what kind of partner do you look for? Or what kind of employee do you look for? You look for someone who's truthful, who's not a liar, and who's trustworthy. Because if you are doing partnership with someone who's a liar, he's going to cheat you all the time. He's going to lie. Wherever and whenever he gets an opportunity, he will lie to make himself richer and take it from your share. And if he's not trustworthy, then whatever you leave with him, whatever you leave in his possession, you cannot trust him. He will end up destroying it intentionally, deliberately, or do something due to his recklessness, due to his carelessness, and cause you harm and cause you loss. So because the Prophet ﷺ was the only one in all of Makkah who was a Sadiq and Al-Amin, So people started trusting him. People started investing with him. And eventually, Khadija radiallahu anha, the richest woman in Mecca, she decided to invest her money with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she offered the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam more pay and more profit than anybody else in Mecca. Because she really loved those two qualities of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he's a sadiq and he's al-amin. He is the truthful man and he is a trustworthy man. So then, this is how the Prophet ﷺ got introduced to al-Mu'mineen Sayyida Aisha Sayyida Khadija radiallahu anha, and then he started working for her, and she used to give the Prophet ﷺ money. He would buy merchandise with that money, and then make business, make trade with that, and make a lot of profit for her, and of course, the Prophet ﷺ himself would make profit as well. That eventually led to the moment where al-Mu'mineen Khadija radiallahu anha sent a proposal to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We'll carry our story from here, inshallah, next Friday. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Any questions? Brother Imran? Okay. So we would like to share some update on how we are envisioning this Friday night dinner, inshallah, how to keep it going without any interruption and make it successful for all of us, inshallah, for our families, for our children, and make it a pleasant experience, an experience to learn, an experience to socialize, an experience to love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're going to share our vision with you, inshallah. Brother Imran is going to do that. And towards the end, we're going to make dua, inshallah, of course, for our brothers and sisters who are being oppressed. And we're going to make dua for the Quran completion, Quran recitation completion, number 24 and 25 in the community as well, inshallah. Jazakallah.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू।
इसको बंद कर